Chapter 28:48. No buts. Try it, it's delicious. Fengjiu said with a smile, gesturing for him to try it. Seeing this, Hui Lang picked up a prawn with his chopsticks. It was slightly spicy and tasted delicious. The prawn meat was plump and springy, and when he bit down, it had a crispy texture. This texture and spiciness spread in his mouth, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Hiss! So spicy, so crispy, so fragrant. From mildly spicy to extremely spicy, the spiciness seemed to change. After eating only one prawn, his forehead was already sweating. Although it was very spicy, the texture was really good, and he didn't want to stop eating, so he continued eating. Fengjiu saw this and smiled, saying, although it's delicious, if you really can't finish it, then don't eat too much. I can't, this is delicious. Hui Lang said. Then, do you want another pot of wine? Fengjiu asked. Thank you, Ghost Doctor. Hui Lang grinned and quickly thanked him. Thus, Fengjiu asked someone to send him a pot of wine. Seeing him eat, he asked, do you want rice? No need for rice. Hui Lang waved his hand and poured himself a cup of wine. Ying Yi, who was in the dark, was a little surprised. Was it really that delicious? However, the chili water made him frown. If Hui Lang really ate that big pot of chili, he wouldn't be able to stand it. Xianyuan Mose looked at Hui Lang eating and asked, is he okay eating like that? It's okay, don't worry. At most, he'll have constipation. Fengjiu smiled. By the time Hui Lang finished eating, it was already 15 minutes later. However, when he turned to look at the two of them, even the two of them who were very calm couldn't help but be stunned. Master, Ghost Doctor, what's wrong? Hui Lang asked. His face was slightly red because of the spicy food, but it was hard to tell because of his skin color. His lips were more than half swollen at this time, which made people unable to help but laugh. Fengjiu stood up and poked her head out to take a look, and was stunned again. She saw that the soup in the basin was also drunk by him. She stared at him and asked, why did you drink the soup? Hui Lang swallowed his saliva and said, Ghost Doctor, you don't know, but that prawn was really fragrant. The soup was even fresher. I wanted to try it, but I couldn't help but drink it. Burp. He burped and rubbed his stomach. I'm so full. You ate too much. Seeing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. Looking at his red and swollen lips, he asked, your mouth doesn't feel anything. How do you feel? I don't feel anything. I've long been numb from the spicy food. As he spoke, he reached out to touch it and was stunned. Why does it feel different? Fengjiu shook his head. With a turn of his hand, he took out a bottle of pills. He poured out one pill and handed it to him. Eat it. It clears the heat and detoxifies the poison. Thank you, Ghost Doctor. Hui Lang grinned. Let's go back. We've been out for a long time today. Chapter 28:49. When the people in the residence saw Hui Lang return with a red and swollen mouth, they were all astonished and looked at him curiously. Luo Yu asked, Hui Lang, what happened to you? It's nothing. I drank too much soup and ended up like this, Hui Lang said as he quickly returned to his room. Everyone smiled and didn't ask any more questions. However, they didn't know that he would go to the latrine every day for the next few days. In the rear courtyard, Fengjiu went to her mother's place and told her about the things they had bought that day. Finally, after sitting with her family for a while, she returned to her room. After taking a bath, she lay on the bed and heard footsteps coming in. She took a look and saw that it was Xianyuan Mose. She said, my grandfather is willing to let you come back. I thought you would play chess with him the entire night. Xianyuanmo's lips curved slightly. He took off his outer coat and poured himself a cup of water by the table. He said, I played 3 games in a row and lost all 3 games. Do you think the old master will keep me for the entire night? Tonight, my mother told me that my older brother has picked a date to send the betrothal gifts. He said that he will come to pick up the bride 3 days after the betrothal gifts are sent. I don't think anyone else can be as fast as him. Speaking of this, she smiled. Looking at how happy my older brother is tonight, it seems that he is also very happy. Marriage is a joyous occasion. Of course he is happy. After drinking the cup of water, Xianyuanmo sat down by the bed and looked at her lying on the bed. He said, after he gets married, we should also leave. At that time, we can also send Feng Yi and the others back. Okay. She nodded in response and lay down a little to make room for him. I haven't bathed yet. You go to sleep first. He stood up but didn't lie down. Instead, he asked the servants to prepare a bath and went to take a bath first. Seeing this, Fengjiu yawned, turned over, and fell asleep while hugging his blanket. In the following days, the Feng Manor did its best to arrange Guan Shilin's betrothal gifts. Everyone became busy. Some of the aristocratic families in the city also knew that Guan Shilin was about to get married, thus they all prepared gifts to congratulate him. Because the 2 places were too far apart, the Yi family also came to the Peach Blossom Dock after Feng Xiao accompanied Guan Shilin to deliver the betrothal gifts. This was what Yi Jing and Guan Shilin had discussed. They planned to get married in Peach Blossom Dock. On the day of the wedding, the Guan family, which was next door to the Feng Manor, was filled with red lanterns and a joyous atmosphere. As for the Guan family's ancestral home, after hearing the news, they all sat in the manor and sighed. One wrong step led to many wrong steps. If they had known this would happen, they would not have treated Guan Shilin like that. Chapter 2850. As soon as he entered the room, his swaying footsteps stopped, and a smile appeared on his drunken face. He looked at the bride sitting by the bed, wearing a bridal gown and a red veil, and laughed foolishly. Big brother Guan, why are you laughing foolishly? Hurry up and take off the veil. We want to see the bride. A crowd had gathered outside the door, and half of them had squeezed into the room. That's right, that's right. We want to see the bride, and we want to make a scene in the bridal room. Someone joined in the commotion. Guan Shilin, who was about to walk to the bed, came back to his senses. He turned around, looked behind him, and said in surprise, Why haven't you left yet? We were afraid that you would be too drunk to enter the room. Who knew that you would act as if you didn't drink at all? Big brother Guan, are you pretending to be drunk? Ha 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 ha. Everyone laughed heartily as they looked at Guan Shilin's happy face. They were all happy for him. Hee hee, brothers, you've seen the bride, and we've made a scene in the bridal room. That's enough. Do you think it's easy for me to get married? Every minute of the night is worth 1,000 gold. Isn't it time to go to the front yard and drink? Guan Shilin laughed loudly, and his smiling eyes swept across the crowd. He couldn't help but have the urge to touch his forehead when he saw that they were surrounding him and didn't want to leave. Thus, he called out, Xiao Jiu, Xiao Jiu. A corner of the roof tile was lifted, and Fengjiu poked his head out with a smile. Brother, are you looking for me? Guan Shilin was startled when he heard the voice. He looked up, and his eyes widened in shock. Why are you on my roof? Isn't today your and sister-in-law's wedding night? I wanted to eavesdrop, but there were too many people in the corner, so I had no choice but to come up here. Fengjiu said innocently, blinking his eyes and looking at him with a smile. Hearing this, Yi Jing, who was sitting on the edge of the bed, couldn't help but lower her head. Her beautiful face flushed red with embarrassment. None of them were serious. Even Fengzhou was like that. Xiaozhou, you can't do this to your brother. Hurry up and help me bring them to the front for a drink. I'll thank you properly later. Guan Shilin helplessly cupped his hands and asked for her help. Fengzhou chuckled. All right. Since Big Brother has said so, then I have to help. She put the tile back and jumped to the ground. Today, she was wearing a green dress, which was also incomparably elegant. As soon as she arrived, the crowd below roared with laughter. Without needing her to say anything, they quickly retreated. Brother Guan, a moment in the spring is worth 1,000 gold. We won't delay your wedding night. I wish you and sister-in-law a chubby baby next year. Ha 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 ha! The crowd chatted as they walked out. Gradually, only the few of them were left in the bustling inner courtyard. Fengzhou smiled and poked her head in. Brother, sister-in-law, I'll be leaving too. She chuckled and walked out. Watching her leave, Guan Shilin breathed a sigh of relief. They're finally gone. These ancestors. He hurriedly closed and locked the door, closed the windows, and looked around before letting out a sigh of relief. Chapter 28:51. Yes, Yi Jing replied in a small voice. She was a little nervous. Guan Shilin picked up the wedding rod and carefully lifted the red veil on her head. She sat on the edge of the bed and looked up at him shyly. His heart skipped a beat when he saw her, and he grinned foolishly. Ah, Jing, you're so beautiful. He quickly lifted the veil and said, I'll help you take off the phoenix crown on your head. He carefully took off the phoenix crown on her head and placed it to the side. Ah, Jing, from today onwards, you're mine. He couldn't help but hold her hand. His heart was beating fast. From today onwards, he had a family. This family was different from his adoptive father's. She was his closest relative, and she was the one who would bear his children in the future. Looking at his fiery gaze, Yi Jing's delicate face flushed red. She lowered her eyes and said, I'll go take a bath and change my clothes first. You can sit for a while. After saying that, she got up and went to the back of the screen. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Brother Guan. It was Lang Hua's gentle voice. Coming. Guan Shilin stood up with a smile and went to open the door. Brother Guan, here are the wedding noodles you wanted. He handed the tray to him. Ha, Lang Hua, thank you. Guan Shilin took the tray with a smile. You're welcome. I'll go back now. I wish Brother Guan and sister-in-law a happy marriage. I hope you have a child soon. He turned and left. Guan Shilin closed the door and sat down at the table with his things. When he heard the sound of water coming from behind the screen, he could not help but feel thirsty. He stretched his head slightly to look at the screen, only to see a blurry figure. However, this blurry figure made him feel as if there was a fire burning in his body. He hurriedly poured himself a cup of water and drank it. Only then did he feel the fire in his heart subside slightly. After waiting for a while, he saw the graceful figure behind the screen step out of the bathtub. Those long slender legs, that slender waist that couldn't be held, and those towering peaks that drew a perfect arc in front of her chest, he couldn't help but think of the secret book that Luo Yu and the others had given him. Thinking of the scenes in the book and seeing the alluring figure behind the screen, he only knew that the fire he had suppressed with great difficulty was surging up again, and it was getting out of hand. But when he looked over, he saw the graceful figure standing behind the screen. She seemed to be holding a piece of clothing in her hand, but she didn't seem to know what to do. He couldn't help but ask, Ah Jing, are you done? His voice was a little hoarser than usual. I'm almost done. Yi Jing was afraid that he would come in. But when she held the translucent and sexy piece of clothing in her hand, her pretty face flushed red. She was a little shy and nervous. Fengjiu said that he had prepared clothes for her. So it was just this one piece of clothing. But this one, how was she going to wear it out? He had never seen a piece of clothing with so little fabric, and it looked so strange. He didn't know how she got it. Ah, Jing. Guan Shilin called out again, confused. Why was she standing there without moving? Ah. What's wrong? Guan Shilin stood up and walked over to the screen. Do you need my help? He cleared his throat and said, Ah, Jing, there's some food here. Sit down and eat. Okay. Yi Jing responded and followed him to the table to sit down. However, wearing such a sexy and seductive dress, she also felt uncomfortable all over, especially when she was eating. She felt his burning eyes on her body. Therefore, she asked in a low voice, Do you want to take a shower? Okay. Guan Shilin stood up and reluctantly looked away from her. Get someone to prepare water for you. There's only water in there. Chapter 28:53. Hearing this, Yi Jing's face turned even redder. Guan Shilin entered the bathroom and came out after a quick shower. When he saw Yi Jing sitting in front of the dressing table and drying her hair, he walked up to her and took the handkerchief from her hand. Let me do it. He looked at the mirror and saw that one of them was standing while the other was sitting in front of the mirror. The reflection in the mirror was like a peach blossom and was extremely shy. When his gaze fell on the reflection in the mirror, his breathing involuntarily became heavier. Ah, Jing, are you full? Why do I feel like you didn't eat much? There was still a lot of food left on the table. I'm full, she said softly. Seeing this, he helped her dry her hair and said, I'm not full yet. Eat a little more with me. Okay. She responded and went to the table with him. She sat beside him and watched him finish all the food she had left. She couldn't help but ask, Is it enough? If it's not enough, I'll get someone to send more. It's enough. He smiled and looked at her. Next, let's drink cross-cupped wine. As he spoke, he poured 2 cups of wine. They each held a cup and drank with their arms crossed. After drinking a cup of wine, he leaned closer to her and lifted her up. Ah, Jing, let's go to bed. Yi Jing shyly buried her face in his chest and responded softly. She felt him carry her to the bed and put her down. The bed curtains were put down, covering the spring scenery on the bed. 3 days later, in the morning everyone in the residence gathered in the living room. Even Guan Shilin and Yi Jing were there. Seeing that everyone was present, Fengjiu said, Zhe and I plan to leave. We don't know when we'll be back this time. So soon. Everyone in the living room was surprised and a little reluctant to leave. Fengjiu smiled. It's not soon. We've estimated the time we'll be back. Moreover, the journey from here to Penglai Island is not short. We can make arrangements in advance. She paused and smiled. Moreover, my brother just got married. Naturally, he'll have to stay here longer. So, I plan to send Feng Yi and the others back. But you? Guan Shilin was a little hesitant. Brother, you don't have to worry about us. Feng Jiu smiled and continued, based on your current cultivation level, you only need to lay a good foundation before you can break through to the next level. You can stay here and cultivate. That way, you can still take care of your family. There's no need for you to go out and train. When your strength reaches a certain level, you can go and challenge the immortal ascension stairs again. Hearing this, Guan Shilin nodded. Xiao Zhou, Fengjiu, Mo's, Fengjiu, 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 Fengjiu. Fengjiu, Fengjiu, said, Fengjiu, Fengjiu, Fengjiu. Hearing this, everyone fell silent and didn't say anything. It was Feng Sanyuan who said, All right, then all of you prepare. We'll leave in the evening. Chapter 28:54. Feng Yi looked at his father and mother, then said to Feng Xiao, I'm a man. When I become stronger, I'll come back. Ha ha ha, good. Feng Sanyuan smiled happily and said with relief, then when you and Yang Yang return to your master's place, you must cultivate well. Don't make us worry. I know. Feng Yi replied. Mother had people make some clothes for you and Yang Yang. Come, follow mother to the courtyard and bring those clothes. Sushi said and went forward to hold his hand, bringing him and Yang Yang back to the courtyard first. Then I'll go back and prepare. Zay, stay with grandfather and the others for a while. Fengjiu said and left first. In the evening, Fengjiu, Xianyuan Mose, and the others took them to the flying ship and left. Originally, they wanted to let Fire Phoenix stay, but who knew that they all said that it was useless for Fire Phoenix to stay. They forced her to take her away, leaving only the big black bear to guard the door for them. When they got on the flying ship, the contracted beasts were all walking around. Fengjiu finally remembered the silver wolf she had forgotten. That's right, why didn't I see the silver wolf this time? Because she didn't have a contract with the silver wolf, and because the contracted beasts usually walked around the manor, there were so many of them around her that she occasionally didn't notice that one was missing. When he heard this, Xianyuan Mose, who was teasing Hao paused and glanced at her. I let Hao form a contract with that silver wolf. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have almost forgotten about it. You let Hao contract with it. Fengjiu looked in surprise at the child who was dancing in her arms. And, when we were preparing to come over, that wolf also said that it wanted to come. I thought that you had many contracted beasts around you, and you didn't have a contract with the Wolf King by your side, so I wanted to let Hao contract with it. This way, his safety would be more guaranteed. Xianyuan Mose said with a serious expression. However, there was an accident during the contract. When the blood contract was formed, that contracted beast became Hao's servant beast. However, because of this, it fell into a coma and hasn't woken up in Hao's spirit beast space. Servant beast. You helped them form a master-servant contract? Xianyuan Mose shook his head. No. At that time, I didn't have time to use the master-servant contract on them, but the blood contract between the two sides was formed. Naturally, the master-servant contract was formed, and the Wolf King was sucked into Hao's spiritual beast space. Hearing this, Fengjiu blinked. That silver is a divine beast Wolf King. How could something like that happen? I don't know about this either. I can only say that it should have something to do with Hao's identity. Xianyuan Mose said, looking at the child in his arms, also feeling very strange. Chapter 28:55. Seeing that she was carrying the child, Xianyuan Mose walked to the front of the ship and looked into the distance. After a while, he seemed to remember something. He turned back and said, by the way, Mo Chen wanted to come with us, but I rejected him. I think he'll go to Penglai first. Mo Chen. Fengjiu nodded. He didn't think it was strange. Let him be. With his strength and temperament, he should be able to climb the immortal ascension stairs. She carried the child and walked to his side. Let's go see your father, then send Feng Yi and the others back. After that, we'll go directly to Penglai. Okay. Xianyuan Mose nodded. Feng Yi walked up from behind and asked in confusion, Xiaozhou, what kind of place is the Immortal Ascension Stairs? What's on the Immortal Ascension Stairs? What are you going to do there? Fengjiu smiled. It's a path that leads to another place, but only those with strength and temperament can climb it. You should go back and cultivate well. You can try going there in the future. Can Linghua and the others go up as well? He looked back curiously at Luo Yu and the others. Fengjiu smiled. They can't go up, but I have a way to bring them there. Seeing his hesitant expression, Fengjiu knew what he wanted to say. He patted his head and said, "You're still young. Cultivate well here and you won't have to worry about not having a chance." "But How is even younger," he said softly. "How is different. It's because he's too young that I have to bring him with me." She smiled and said, "All right, look, Yang is sitting there cross-legged cultivating. You can't slack off either. Otherwise, you'll be weaker than Yang in the future. It'll be very embarrassing if she has to protect you all the time. I won't be weaker than Yang. I'll be stronger than her." He hurriedly ran back to Yang's side and sat down beside her. He also began to cultivate with her. The spaceship shuttled through the clouds, passing by one place after another. During this time, Fengjiu only rested, cultivated, and ate the things stored in the spaceship. When they arrived at the Xianyuan Empire, the flying ship stopped at the entrance of the Imperial Palace. When the guards saw the black and red figures coming down from the flying ship, they couldn't help but be shocked. They didn't even bother to salute and ran inside to quickly pass on the message. When the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom heard from his subordinates that Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu had arrived, he was slightly taken aback. "They're back." He couldn't help but feel a little happy and a little nervous. The two of them had been in the upper continent for so long, and they finally knew to come back and take a look. Xianyuan Mose led Fengjiu into the inner palace. The two of them bowed to the person on the main seat. "Greetings, Father." "Emperor." Fengjiu greeted and bowed as well. However, she was carrying a child in her arms, so she only nodded slightly. When the emperor of the Xianyuan kingdom saw the child in Fengjiu's arms, he couldn't help but smile excitedly. This is your child?" "My grandson." Quick, bring him over here and let me take a look." When they heard this, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Fengjiu walked forward with the child in her arms and looked at him excitedly. "Why doesn't he look like the two of you?" Chapter 28:56. Hearing this, the emperor was stunned. "You didn't give birth to him?" "No, but we adopted him," Fengjiu said. "I see. No wonder he doesn't look like you at all. But he does look cute and delicate." The emperor handed the child back to Fengjiu and said, "You two have been waiting for so long. I heard that your brother got married recently. Why aren't you two getting married?" "Father, we're not in a hurry," Xianyuan Mo said. "We came back this time to see you. We might not be able to come back for a while." Hearing this, the emperor was stunned and asked, "Why?" "The upper reaches isn't that far from here. You can come back as long as you take the time." "Why can't you come back? Did something happen to you guys over there?" "No, we plan to go to Penglai Island to climb the immortal ladder. We plan to go to another place to cultivate. So we might not be able to come back for the next few years," Xianyuan Mo said. Hearing this, the Xianyuan emperor nodded. "I know. There is indeed a legend about that place. However, can you find it? It's said that the immortal ladder is not easy to climb. If you're not careful, you'll fall from it and lose all your cultivation. We found it and I've been there. There's nothing to be afraid of," Fengjiu said. "Since you've decided, I'll respect your decision. But be careful," the emperor said. "You haven't been back for a long time. Go and get some rest. I'll hold a welcoming dinner for you tonight." "There's no need for a welcoming dinner. I'll bring them around the city tonight. We'll leave tomorrow," Xianyuan Mo said. Seeing this, the emperor nodded. "All right, as you wish. Go." The two of them left and brought the people outside the palace to rest. Feng Yi, who didn't know what fatigue was, brought Yang Yang around the palace. Lang Hua followed the two of them to prevent them from sneaking out of the palace. Luo Yu and the others had the imperial chef prepare some food, and the few of them began to eat and drink in the garden. Ling Shuang and Bai Qingqing were resting in the room with Hao, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou were also drinking in the courtyard. This place was not in the Feng Manor's territory. Thus, when they arrived, all the contracted beasts were put into her space. It was much quieter. Leaving tomorrow. Wasn't it too hasty? Once we leave, it won't be easy for us to come back. Fengzhou said as he picked up a mouthful of food to eat. It's fine to stay here for a long time. Might as well go earlier, Xianyuan Mose said as he poured himself a glass of wine. Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled and did not say anything else. The two of them ate in the courtyard and then took a nap. It was only in the evening that they took Feng Yi and the others out for a stroll in the city. The next morning, before the sun had even risen, they boarded the flying ship and left. A few days later, the flying ship entered the upper continent. Feng Yi and Zhao Yang were no longer in the mood to cultivate. This was because they knew that the day of their departure was coming. Fengzhou, who saw all of this, called the two of them over and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Don't want to go back and cultivate? Or are you unwilling to part with us?" Chapter 28:57. Upon hearing this, Fengzhou chuckled and said, "For cultivators, time flies like flowing water. Years or even decades pass in the blink of an eye. Moreover, isn't today's parting so that we can reunite tomorrow?" Feng Yi lowered his head and did not say anything. That was true, but they were about to part. They were reluctant to part. As the flying boat shuttled through the clouds, a few days later, they arrived at Wudong Mountain where Feng Ye's master was. They did not go down. When they reached the mountain gate, they let Feng Yi and Zhao Yang go down on their flying swords. Go. Go back and cultivate well. Don't think about anything else. Listen to your master obediently. When you have achieved something in the future, you can go back home to take a look or go out to explore. Fengzhou patted their heads and said, "Yes, we will." The two nodded and turned around to fly down on their flying swords. "You guys take care too." Feng Yi turned around and waved as he shouted. His figure gradually disappeared until he returned to Wudong Mountain. Seeing that they had returned safely, Fengzhou and the others also left on the flying boat. This time, they went directly to their destination, Penglai Immortal Island. 2 months later, when they arrived at Penglai Immortal Island and arrived at the city, Luo Yu and the others felt a little discouraged when they saw powerful people everywhere. They booked a few tables on the second floor and sat together. Luo Yu, who had been holding back for a long time, finally could not help but say, "Why are the people here all so powerful? That shopkeeper just now, he's at the celestial sage level, right? He's so powerful, but he's only a shopkeeper. And those cultivators we met on the street just now, they're all at the celestial sage level," Fan Lin said. Fan Lin said. When he suddenly came to this place and saw the experts everywhere, his heart was still fiercely shaken. Hearing their words, Fengzhou chuckled. They've all reached this level directly after consuming some things to increase their strength. Don't look down on them just because they're at this level. If they really fight, their combat power is still not solid. Moreover, they can only stay at this level for the rest of their lives and can't advance anymore. Hearing this, everyone understood. So that's how it is. "Sir, the dishes are here." The waiter was all smiles as he served them the dishes. After placing 3 plates of the same dishes on the table, he said, "The other dishes will be here soon. Guests, please eat with the wine first." After he finished speaking, he left. As they arrived early, they sat at the 3 tables facing the windows on the 2nd floor. Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou sat at the table in the middle, while Luo Yu and the others sat on the left and right. Unknowingly, the table in the middle to protect them. Even Ing and the others, who had been following them, follow Xianyuanmos, and sat to sit with the others' peoples. After all, they were outside, and they had to accompany and protect their masters, so they only tasted the wine and did not drink much. In addition to the wine and dishes, each table also had a large pot of stewed soup and a bowl of rice. The dishes they ordered were all signature dishes. They tasted good and the portions were sufficient. Everyone was full. After the meal, Ling Hua saw that they were almost done eating and wanted to pay the bill first. Then, he heard Fengzhou's voice. Hearing this, the medicine boy was stunned for a moment and quickly responded, "Okay, please wait for a moment. I will immediately pick out some original ingredients for young master." The medicine boy went inside and picked out a set of original ingredients. These were all taken back to grind and refine by oneself. Because the finished ingredients were not that expensive, most people would buy the finished ingredients directly. Very few people would buy the finished ingredients and grind them themselves. "Young master, please take a look. Is this enough?" The medicine boy picked out a set of ingredients and placed it on the table as he asked Fan Lin. Chapter 28:59. The medicine boy was slightly taken aback when he heard this. He was puzzled. Why did he still need those things? However, he still answered and went inside to take out some of the medicinal herbs he wanted. He then picked another set. After checking, Fan Lin nodded and said, "Wrap these up first. We'll calculate them together later." "Yes, young master," the medicine boy said and followed them inside. When he saw suitable medicinal herbs, he would show them to Fan Lin and report the price of those herbs. After picking out the herbs, Fan Lin saw that some of them were for research. However, they didn't bring any grinding tools. Therefore, he asked, "You should have grinding tools here, right? Can I borrow them?" "Well, I'll have to ask the shopkeeper first," the medicine boy said. Fan Lin smiled and said, "Then tell your shopkeeper that I'll give you some extra crystals as payment." Hearing this, the medicine boy smiled and replied, "Okay. Please wait for a moment, young master. I'll be right back. We're going to grind here." Du Fan raised his eyebrows. "Yes, we brought the pill furnace. However, we don't have all the grinding tools. If we borrow their tools, it shouldn't take long." Fan Lin said to them, "How about this? You can go and buy other things later. Come back and find me later." Seeing this, Ling Hua said, "Du Fan and Qingqing go together. I'll stay and help." "Okay." Du Fan nodded and went to buy other things with Bai Qingqing. Their master gave each of them a cosmos sack filled with crystals. Therefore, each of them had a lot of crystals on them. Du Fan and Bai Qingqing were shopping in the shop. They walked through a few streets and bought everything they needed. Just as they were about to go back, they saw a man in brocade clothes who was riding a horse. He was looking at Bai Qingqing, who was dressed in white. Du Fan frowned slightly and glanced at the man. He didn't say anything and just blocked the man's view with his body. They didn't want to cause trouble and make enemies in this place. "Why are you blocking me? Get out of my way." The man in embroidered clothes on the horse frowned and shouted. He was looking at the beautiful woman, not the scholarly man holding a fan. "Hee, young master is so overbearing." Du Fan smiled and didn't move aside. He only looked at the man in embroidered robes who was riding a horse down the cliff and said, "We aren't blocking your path. If you want to pass, then let us pass. He led Bai Qingqing to the side and opened up a path. It was rare for him to make such a concession. Gee! The man in embroidered clothes sneered, looking like a rich playboy. He raised his chin slightly and cast a sidelong glance at Du Fan. Who do you think you are? There's nothing in this city that I can't get. As soon as he said that, he inexplicably thought of something that caused his expression to change for a moment. Go. Chapter 2860. Du Fan glanced at the celestial sage cultivators surrounding them. His eyes flashed. He stopped Bai Qingqing, who was about to step forward, and gently waved the fan in his hand. You want us to follow you? That's right. The two of them had good looks and manners. They were even more outstanding than his guards. The woman in white, in particular, was very pleasing to the eye. It would be good to keep her by his side. Hearing this, Du Fan smiled and said, "Thank you for thinking so highly of us. We have 2 more brothers. Would you be interested in taking them in as well?" Bai Qingqing was slightly stunned. She did not know what he meant. However, Du Fan's ability to adapt was much better than hers. Although she did not know what he meant, she believed that he must have a plan. Therefore, she stood quietly and did not speak. Oh. There are 2 more. The man's eyes lit up. Where are they? How do they look? Are they magnanimous? What skills do they have? They are in the medicinal ingredient store on the next street. Although they are not as strong as your guards, in terms of looks and manners, your guards are not as good as us. Speaking of this, Du Fan's face bloomed into a smile. He gently fanned himself with the fan in his hand, looking very elegant. Moreover, I am proficient in the art of formations. The girl beside me is proficient in swordsmanship. As for the other 2 brothers, one is proficient in medicine, and the other is as meticulous as dust. He smiled and asked, "Would you like to take them in?" "Of course. Of course. Quickly, bring me there." The man in the brocade robe smiled. He waved his hand and let Du Fan and the others lead the way. The dozen or so celestial sage cultivators surrounding them naturally retreated and followed the 2 in front of them to the next street. At the Dragon Boat Festival, Ling Hua helped Fan Lin pack the ground medicinal powder. Just as he was about to pay, the shopkeeper looked at the 2 of them with a smile. "Young masters, would you be willing to sell us a pack of these medicinal herbs?" the shopkeeper asked. Hearing this, Fan Lin smiled and shook his head. "These are for personal use. They are not for sale." The shopkeeper, who had been secretly watching from the side, could not help but feel anxious when he heard this. "I am willing to buy them at double the price. Actually, I saw that your medicinal herbs are different from the ones made by our apothecary, so I thought. Even if I give them to you, you can't make the same medicinal herbs as mine." Fan smiled and said, "In addition to your medicinal herbs, I have added other medicinal herbs. Even if I give them to your apothecary to make them, your apothecary, he can't make them." "This. Young master, can we discuss this?" the shopkeeper tried to ask again. After all, the medicine in their shop was really not as good as this one. Fan Lin's eyes flickered when he saw the shopkeeper's reaction. "Shopkeeper, do you really want it?" To be. I can sell a pack to the shopkeeper, but it's 200 crystals per pack." He laughed and took out one of the packs. "How about it? 200 crystals? The shopkeeper was stunned for a moment. The medicine he had just bought did not even cost 200 spar, but when he thought about it, maybe after getting that bag of medicine, they could concoct the same amount of medicine. If they sold it in the shop, the 200 spar would be earned back very quickly. He had seen them try the medicinal herbs behind them. Even the snakes did not dare to come close. It was definitely something good. Some of the people in the city saw that there was something interesting to watch, and some of them followed behind and talked about it. Among them, there were also some cultivators. These people are not very strong, but the young city lord has his eyes on them. However, these people have extraordinary temperaments. I wonder where they come from. Chapter 2862. Fengjiu and the others, who didn't know what was going on, were still sitting in the restaurant. Because it was close to noon, there were more and more people. The tables on the second floor were quickly filled. Those who went up to the second floor all looked at Fengjiu, Xianyuanmos, and the others. Their eyes were filled with surprise, and one or two of them had a strange expression. Hey, look at that woman in red. Doesn't she look like the person who taught the young city lord a lesson half a year ago? Hearing this, the people at the same table all looked at the beautiful woman in red. With one look, they couldn't help but be startled. It seems like it. I've seen that face before. It seems like it's her. For a moment, the few people who remembered how powerful this person was couldn't help but secretly guess. Which blind person would provoke her this time? Last time, the young city lord almost became her slave. In the end, it was the city lord who saved the young city lord. You came here last time too? Xianyuanmos asked. Because he heard those people's words, he knew that something unforgettable had happened here. Fengjiu chuckled, last time. Last time, the young city lord, Ling Tianyu, almost became my slave. Other than that, there was nothing else. Master, the ghost doctor, Du Fan, and the others are back. However, it seems like there are many people following behind them. Hui Lang, who was paying attention to the outside, looked at the people coming from the street. Fengjiu glanced at the people on the street. Other than Du Fan and the others, he also saw the person who was talking just now, Ling Tianyu. I met an old acquaintance again. What a small world. She sighed and shook her head in amusement. Xianyuanmos looked outside. His gaze fell on the man in embroidered clothes who was riding a horse. He asked, who is this person? This is the young master of the city, Ling Tianyu, Fengjiu said with a smile. Looking at the situation below, he said, I guess his old illness is acting up again. What kind of old illness? Xianyuanmos raised his eyebrows. Robbing someone on the street. Fengjiu said with a smile. As soon as she said that, Xianyuanmos' face darkened, and he glanced at Ling Yu with a heavy gaze. Did that mean that this brat had the idea of snatching his aju back then? On the street, when Ling Tianyu saw the red figure sitting by the window of the restaurant from afar, she felt inexplicably uneasy. Why did he feel that something was amiss? That red figure also looked somewhat familiar. It seemed to be Fengjiu. How could this be? That person had already gone to some unknown place, so why would he come here again? He must be thinking too much. However, even so, his heart was still in a mess. Especially when he saw the four people in front of him walking leisurely, he felt that something was wrong. These four people had not been afraid or panicked from the beginning. They even led him here. Were they sure that their master was more powerful than him? Thinking of this, he could not help but ask, the one in front, the one with the fan. Du Fan was startled. He turned around and asked with a smile, young master, are you calling me? My name is Du Fan, not the one with the fan. Who cares what your name is? Let me ask you, what is your master's name? He asked, staring at Du Fan. Especially when they saw that this was only a group of 12 people, and that there was a strange group with a child and 3 women. They didn't care about them at all. "Hey, brother, what are you roasting? It smells good." A burly mercenary came forward, but his eyes were looking back and forth between Fengzhou, Bai Qingqing, and Leng Shuang. Chapter 2866. The woman in red was lazily and casually sitting on the blanket, feeding the child. Her lazy expression was extremely alluring and seductive. Just a glance from her made his heart skip a beat. What a stunner! However, just as his eyes were about to reveal his lust, 2 leaves flew towards him. He was shocked and didn't even have time to dodge before his eyes hurt. Hiss! A mournful scream pierced through the sky, startling the birds on the branches and causing them to flap their wings and flutter in the air, causing the leaves on the trees to fall one after another. This also caused the mercenaries who came from behind to quickly draw their swords from their waists and charge forward. As for the mercenary, he stood there trembling. His hands were covering his eyes as blood gushed out from his eyes, staining his hands red. The blood flowed down his cheeks and dripped onto the ground, sinking into the grass and soil. When the mercenaries saw this scene, the 2 leaders narrowed their eyes and sized up the 12 people. In the end, their sharp gazes landed on Xianyuan Mose, who was dressed in a black robe, and Fengzhou, who was dressed in a red dress. From their point of view, they could naturally tell at a glance that these 2 people were the masters of the 12 people. However, why was this group bringing along a baby? With Luo Yu and the others guarding, the mercenaries didn't set foot in their area. Even the blind mercenary was standing 2 to 3 meters away from Luo Yu and the others. My eyes! My eyes! Ah! I'll kill you all! He screamed angrily. His bloody hands drew the large sword from his waist and slashed wildly. Seeing this, Hui Lang's eyes flashed with killing intent. He attacked with his sharp sword at an extremely fast speed. How dare you be so impudent in front of us? Whoosh! The long sword was deflected by a mercenary behind him. The leader of the mercenary stared at Hui Lang and at the same time held down the blind mercenary, saying, "Your Excellency and the others have already injured my mercenary's eyes. Don't tell me you want to take his life. You've gone too far." Pfft! Luo Yu sneered and said, "Your mercenary offended my master. I'm already being merciful by not killing him." Hearing this, the mercenary stared at Luo Yu and the others with murderous intent. One of them shouted, "Leader! Kill them! A mere dozen people dare to go against us. In my opinion, they're tired of living. That's right. Kill them! Kill them!" The dozens of mercenaries raised the swords in their hands and shouted. Their eyes were filled with killing intent as they stared at Luo Yu and the others. Especially when they saw the 3 beautiful women behind them, evil thoughts involuntarily surfaced in their hearts. In this place, if one wanted to see a female cultivator, they would be able to do so. Moreover, there were 3 extremely beautiful women among this group of people. In this place, beautiful women were more tempting than treasures. Leader! Kill them all and snatch those girls over. That's right, kill the men. Kill the men. That's right, destroy it. Rob, my mother. I didn't meet these blind people, and it was convenient and inconspicuous for me to travel alone. Master, the stairway of immortality opens once a year. Are there many people coming here every year? Du Fan asked. Chapter 2868. Almost at the same time, the figure of the fire phoenix flashed and transformed into an ordinary little bird. It flapped its wings and landed on a branch, while Tun Yun and Old White continued to look at the cultivators who were approaching them. The pressure of these contracted beasts is too strong, and it attracted the attention of some experts in the forest. Xianyuan Mo said, and stood with his hands behind his back. He looked at the few immortal supremes who stopped about 10 meters away from them in a few breaths of time. The few immortal supremes stopped in mid-air, and when they saw the two sacred beasts and the corpses on the ground, they couldn't help but be secretly shocked. They had just felt the strong pressure and hurried over to take a look, but they didn't expect to see the two sacred beasts exterminating an entire mercenary group. Their gazes swept across the dead mercenaries' uniforms, and they gasped slightly. They all knew about this mercenary group. Due to their strength and numbers, they were doing the business of looting here. No one had ever dared to go against them. Even if they encountered them, they would quickly leave after handing over their belongings. But now, they had fallen here. They retracted their gazes and looked at the people below. Their gazes swept past Luo Yu and the others, and landed on Xianyuan Mo's and Fengjiu. When they saw the two young men and women whose strength they couldn't see through, they didn't dare to stop in mid-air and look down at them with a condescending attitude. On the contrary, after they looked at each other, they descended from mid-air and landed on the ground. Everyone has gotten rid of a threat for this forest, please accept our greetings. After thinking for a while, they didn't ask anything else, and first cupped their hands and bowed. Xianyuan Mo's expression was indifferent, and Fengjiu had a faint smile on his face. They looked at the few old men in front of them, and finally, Fengjiu said, "You're exaggerating. If these mercenaries didn't have evil intentions, we wouldn't have done anything." Hearing this, the few of them couldn't help but be moved. Does that mean that as long as people don't offend her, she won't offend them? As a result, they heaved a sigh of relief. This team only had a mere 10 people, but they were able to exterminate the mercenary team that had more than 10 people. This was not only because of the two sacred beasts, but also because this black and red, male and female, these two were unfathomable and extremely powerful. They, who had seen countless of people, could feel an oppressive chi the moment they met. It was imaginable how strong these two were to be able to make immortal venerables feel oppressed. "Excuse me for asking, but why have you all come to this forest?" This place was extremely dangerous. In addition to the ferocious beasts that roamed about, there were also mercenaries that robbed and killed. Ordinary people would not set foot in this place, but these dozen people had brought a child here. It was really strange. Since I had nothing to do, I decided to come out and have some fun. I heard that there's a stairway to immortality in this forest. Naturally, I wanted to take a look, Fengjiu said in a half-serious manner. On the other side, Luo Yu and the others had already taken out the valuables from the mercenaries. When they were about to hand it over to Fengjiu, she waved her hand and said, "Just keep it. If you can use it, take it." Hearing this, the few immortal venerables were stunned again. Those mercenaries were not lacking in valuables, but this woman just waved her hand and gave all those valuables to these people. These people didn't look strong, and were probably just their subordinates, but she treated them so generously. Chapter 2869. Is there anything else? Fengjiu turned and glanced at the immortals. Hearing this, the immortals paused and hurriedly said, "No, then we'll take our leave first." They didn't know what else to say, so they bowed and turned to leave. After they left, Fengjiu asked them to clean up the corpses, and the group moved to a cleaner place to rest. Under the night sky, Xianyuan Mo asked Ding Yi and Hui Lang to go ahead and check out the immortal ascension stairs. Fengjiu was worried that they would meet strong cultivators, so she asked the fire phoenix to go with them. Thus, the two of them and the beast took advantage of the darkness and went deeper into the forest. The next morning, Fengjiu woke up to Hao Er's cries. She looked at the child sleeping in her arms and reached out to touch him. Her hand was wet. She called out, "Ling Shuang, help her change out of his clothes." Yes. Ling Shuang came forward and carried the child over. Fengjiu looked around and didn't see Xianyuanmo's. She turned to Lang Hua and asked, "Where is he?" "Yalma Lord went to wash up. There's a spring not far ahead." "He's there," Lang Hua said. Fengjiu nodded. She got up and tidied her slightly messy hair. She yawned and said, "We won't leave today. Let's wait here for Hui Lang and the others to come back." "Okay." The immortals replied. Seeing that they were all awake, they prepared to eat. Some of them cooked porridge, while others cooked simple dishes on small stoves piled up with stones. They had a lot of food and tools in their space. As long as they started a fire, they could cook whatever they wanted. It didn't feel like they were in the wild forest. Instead, it felt like they were in their own backyard. Fengjiu also walked towards the mouth of the spring and prepared to wash up. When he got there, he saw Xianyuanmo's walking towards him. "Are you done washing up?" Fengjiu asked. Seeing that he seemed to be holding something in his hand, he stuck his head out to take a look. "These are raspberries. I saw that they had grown quite a lot earlier, so I picked some for you to eat." He passed the raspberries wrapped in leaves to her. "You can eat them directly. I've washed them." There's actually such a thing. This raspberry is sweet and sour. It tastes really good. When Fengjiu saw it, her eyes immediately turned into crescents. She happily took it and said with a smile, "Thank you." "Silly girl, there's no need to thank me." He shook his head and smiled. "Where did you pick it? Are there any more?" "Let's go pick more," Fengjiu said, picking up one to eat, and then put another to his lips. Xianyuanmo's opened his mouth and ate as he said, "There's a big patch over there. If you want to eat more, we can go pick more." "Okay, I'll go wash my face first." Thus, Xianyuanmo's accompanied her to the mouth of the spring. After she finished washing up, he brought her to the patch of raspberries. "It's here. Look, there's a big patch. Wow. There's really a lot." She looked at the bright red raspberries in front of her in surprise. Her eyes narrowed into slits as she smiled. "If these raspberries are made into fruit juice, it'll be very delicious." "No, I have to pick all of them before Hui Lang and the others come back." She took out something to pack the raspberries. When she was about to walk in, Xianyuanmo's pulled her back. She looked back at him and asked, "What's wrong?" They rested there until the next morning, when the group of people flew on their swords and headed towards their destination. In the forest, Tun Yun and Lao Bai, the two contracted beasts, ran on the ground. They crossed the grass and followed them all the way to the immortal ascension stairs. In the evening, as they got closer to their destination, they slowed down their pace. Fengjiu held Xianyuanmo's hand and looked back at the group, saying, "Without a certain level of strength, you can't go up the immortal ascension stairs. With your current strength, you won't be able to go up. But now that you're here, it would be a pity if you don't take a look." Chapter 2872. After hearing her words, they immediately followed her instructions. After balancing the spiritual energy in their bodies, they walked up the stairs. As they walked, they heard their master's voice behind them. "Discard all distracting thoughts. Be firm in your beliefs. Don't hesitate when you take a step. Fengjiu watched them from behind. He watched as the four of them walked up the ladder step by step. Leng Hua felt that every step he took was as smooth as the ground. He walked up step by step without feeling any pressure. After about 50 steps, he finally felt the strong pressure from the immortal ascension ladder. He adjusted his breathing and continued walking. He tried to calm himself down and not think about anything else. Luo Yu, Fan Lin, and Du Fan were originally only 1 or 2 steps away from each other. However, when they reached 50 meters, their speed clearly slowed down. They looked ahead and realized that it was different from what they had seen below. From below, they saw that it was pitch black. However, when they reached the top, they realized that the immortal ascension ladder was as bright as day. The ladder formed under their feet. Other than the fact that they couldn't see their surroundings, it was still very bright. They were clearly in the same place, but their vision was different. They couldn't help but feel that it was novel. Fengjiu walked behind them and watched as they walked up. When they reached the 80th step, Fan Lin, Luo Yu, and Du Fan's foreheads were already sweating. Their expressions changed slightly, but they still gritted their teeth and tried to continue walking. After they lifted their feet and tried to take a step forward, Fengjiu's voice sounded in their minds. 88 steps. That's about it. You guys can go down first. Let Lang Hua, Qingqing, Hui Lang, and Ying Yi come up. They calmed down and heard her words. When they looked up, they couldn't help but be stunned. Lang Hua was still in front of them. He was even walking up the ladder. When they saw this, they were slightly surprised. However, they didn't say anything. Instead, they bowed to Fengjiu and turned to walk down the ladder. After watching them leave, Fengjiu looked at Lang Hua in front of him and followed him. Lang Hua walked up. Everything in front of him was a vast expanse of whiteness. He didn't know how many steps he had taken. He only wanted to take as many steps as he could. He was different from the others. His body had been weak since he was young. Being able to stay by his master's side was a blessing that he had accumulated over several lifetimes. He had been working hard, hoping that he could become stronger and be able to protect his master. He thought that since Luo Yu and Du Fan were stronger than him, they must be ahead of him. Although he didn't know how far ahead they were, he had to work hard and not be left too far behind. Thus, he walked forward step by step. The conviction in his heart allowed him to walk forward without any hesitation. He couldn't hear anything around him. He only felt that it was very quiet. Even his master had disappeared. However, he knew that even if he couldn't see where his master was, his master must be looking at him. Therefore, he couldn't let his master down. Fengjiu followed behind and watched. He was slightly surprised. She didn't expect that Lang Hua, the weakest of the four, would be the one who walked the furthest. Seeing him walk forward without hesitation, she couldn't help but smile. Chapter 2873. Du Fan and the others came to Xianyuan Mo's side and said, "Yama Lord, Master wants Hui Lang and Lang Shuang to go up." "Then you can go up," Xianyuan Mo said. He carried Hao in his arms and found a place to sit down. "Yes." The others answered and walked up. Du Fan saw this and quickly told them what Fengjiu had said to them. Then he watched them walk up the ladder. Seeing that Lang Hua had not come down after so long, he couldn't help but mutter, "I didn't expect Lang Hua to go the furthest among us." Fan Lin looked up and said, "He's been with Master the longest and has been trained by him. It's not surprising that he went further than us." "That's true. But when I think about how he's the weakest among us, but he went the furthest, I feel a little useless." Luo Yu sighed and found a place to sit down cross-legged. "I wonder how far he'll go." Du Fan said as he looked at the figure on the ladder. They could still see about 100 steps up. Therefore, they also noticed that Lang Hua was walking slower and slower. Their master was following behind at a moderate pace. Hey, who do you think will go the furthest among the four of Hui Lang and Lang Shuang? Luo Yu looked at the others and asked. I think Bai Qingqing and Hui Lang came down first, followed by Lang Shuang. Yin Yi should go the furthest, Du Fan said. Fan Lin shook his head. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The others looked at him. Yes, Ling Shuang's temperament might even be better than Yin Yi's. Fan Lin looked at the figures and then at Lang Hua. You know how Ling Shuang protected Lang Hua before she met Master. Her temperament is definitely better than Lang Hua's. Even Yin Yi can't compare. Hearing this, the others fell silent. Maybe it was true. Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting to the side, heard their conversation and smiled slightly. He played with Hao in his arms and didn't say anything. Just then, thunder suddenly fell from the clouds. The sound of thunder shook the hearts of the people below. They looked up and saw that Lang Hua was already sitting cross-legged on the 100th step, being tempered by the thunder. He advanced. Luo Yu looked at Lang Hua enviously. He could advance just by going up the immortal ascension stairs. Yes, he advanced. Didn't Master say that? Before the 100th step, one's will be tempered. After the 100th step, one can advance and break through. Du Fan exclaimed. Lang Hua not only has a strong will, but he's also very lucky. He made a breakthrough in his temperament, and then naturally advanced to the next level. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he looked at them with his deep, dark eyes and said, if you can reach the 100th step, then your chances of breaking through to the next level are very high. Some of the cultivators who had seen Fengjiu before whispered, you don't know. Last time, this woman came here. She seemed to have reached the top. But for some reason, she came back down. Don't look down on her because she's a woman. Her power is unfathomable. I think she's stronger than all the cultivators here. Hearing this, the cultivators were shocked. They couldn't help but whisper among themselves. Their gazes fell on the immortal ascension stairs. This time, 2 men and 2 women went up. The 2 women were extremely beautiful, but they didn't seem to be very powerful. How far could they go? Chapter 2875. Only then did they feel the pressure grow heavier. It felt like a mountain was pressing down on them, making it hard for them to breathe. They could not even take a single step forward. Bai Qingqing's face grew paler as she walked. She suddenly drew her sword and slashed at her surroundings. I'm going to kill all of you. I'm going to kill all of you. She screamed at the top of her lungs. Her eyes were bloodshot as if she had been possessed. Her voice was filled with hatred and grief. At this moment, in front of her, what she saw was an illusion from the stairway of immortality. She saw her entire clan being annihilated. Those black-robed men were killing her clansmen. She saw her parents lying on the ground, covered in blood. She rushed forward, waving her sword and slashing wildly in an attempt to kill those black-robed men. Behind her, Fengjiu saw her waving her sword and screaming wildly. He knew that she had been bewitched. He glanced at the people in front of him. Seeing that they were not affected, he rushed forward, knocked her unconscious, and sent her down. Catch! She directly sent her down the immortal ascension stairs and gestured for Luo Yu and the others below to catch her. Luo Yu and Du Fan rushed forward to catch her. They quickly carried the unconscious Bai Qingqing to Fan Lin. Quick, check on her. How is she? Fan Lin checked her and said with a serious expression, her mind is in a mess. The blood in her body is flowing in the opposite direction. Fortunately, she was sent down by Master. Otherwise, she would have been in grave danger. Hearing this, the two of them were shocked. She was so powerful. If they had not come down, would they have been in the same state as her? On the Immortal Ascension stairs, Ling Shuang, Hui Lang, and Ying Yi were walking at about the same pace. They had already reached more than 70 steps. Luo Yu and the others below could not help but stare at them. These guys. How are they so much stronger than us? It had to be said that he felt it was unfair when he saw this. As the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard, there was no need to mention their strength, yet in the end, they were actually inferior to Ling Shuang and Lang Hua. What's more, even Hui Lang, who was usually quiet, had a stronger temperament than them. This was simply too much of a blow to them. Fan Lin looked at the people on the ladder of immortality and said, Ling Shuang will follow Master. Needless to say, Ying Yi is the head of the Yama Lord's Shadow Guards. His temperament is extraordinary. The only surprising one is Hui Lang. He usually doesn't seem very reliable, but I didn't expect him to be so determined. Among the 3 of us, Fan Lin, you specialize in medicine and alchemy, so your weakness is one thing. However, if Luo Yu and I are weak, then it's a little inexcusable. Looks like we'll have to work harder in the future. Du Fan sighed softly. That's right. I must double my cultivation. Otherwise, I'll really be left behind. Luo Yu nodded in agreement. At this moment, the 3 of them simultaneously reached the 98th step. They stopped and felt a surge of spiritual energy in their bodies. Calming themselves down, they turned around and saw Fingzhou not far behind them. Master, I feel like I'm about to break through. Ling Shuang said. His cold voice contained a hint of excitement. I feel like I'm about to break through too. The energy in my dantian is already surging. Hui Lang said, touching his dantian. When they heard this, the 2 of them smiled. We know. Also, you have to go up the Immortal Ascension stairs like this. They repeated what Fingzhou had said to them. Finally, they said, go on. Let's just watch the fire. Okay. The 2 of them nodded and walked forward. When they reached there, they bowed to Xianyuan Mo's. Yama Lord. You guys go up and take a walk too. Xianyuan Mo's gestured for them to go up the Immortal Ascension stairs. She sighed in her heart and did not say anything else. She only watched quietly until they crossed the threshold of the 100th step. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of their mouths. The 2 of them quickly took out medicinal pills and consumed them. Seeing this, she was startled. Then, she smiled. These 2 people were smart enough to know that it was time to take medicinal pills. Rumble. Thunder rumbled and the clouds in the night sky surged. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the people sitting cross-legged on the Immortal Ascension stairs. She took a few steps back and silently watched. After watching for a while, she turned around and left. There were no other cultivators coming up here, so there was no need to worry about them being attacked. Thus, she could go down and wait for them to break through. With Senior White and Tunyun standing guard there, it would be strange if those cultivators dared to make a move. Master, they are all advancing up there. I wonder if they will be able to complete their advancement by tomorrow. If they can't, we won't be able to leave tomorrow, right? Yes, there's no hurry. We're already here. Let them rest after they break through before we leave. As Fengjiu spoke, he looked at Hao, who was playing with Xianyuanmo's clothes. He smiled and said, "You must be tired after carrying him for so long. Let me carry you." "No need, you should eat something first." Xianyuanmo said, letting her eat something first. Hearing this, Fengjiu thought for a while and nodded. All right. Chapter 2880. What if we get drunk here? Luo Yu was a little distressed. It's rare for us to be so happy today. I'm sure we'll get drunk. Ha ha ha, it's not the wine that gets you drunk, but you get yourself drunk. If you're afraid of getting drunk, drink less. Wei Feng patted his shoulder and said. It's all right, drink up. I've prepared some hangover pills. Fan Lin said as he took out a bottle and gave each of them a pill. After eating this, you won't get drunk no matter how much you drink. Ha, this is good. Du Fan took the pill and ate it. Come, let's drink. Fengjiu saw that they were so happy and drank with them. When he saw that Leng Hua and Bai Qingqing had only filled half a bowl, he said, It's all right, drink up. This is spiritual wine. The spiritual energy can nourish your muscles and veins. Yes. The two of them answered and took a sip of the wine. Let's all eat some roasted meat. Leng Hua used his knife to cut off a piece of meat and wrapped it in a leaf before handing it to them. The group of people celebrated, eating and drinking. The surrounding cultivators couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Someone said, "It smells so good." How can they roast meat that smells so good? That's right. We roasted it ourselves, but it didn't smell like that. Look at them. How many people are there? They're all breaking through to the next level. I'm so jealous. Ha ha ha. That's because they're all talented. There's no point in being jealous. Damn it. I don't believe it. I'm going to try the Immortal Ascension stairs too. What if I can break through to the next level? As a result, many cultivators were provoked and tried to climb up the Immortal Ascension stairs. However, not long after, some of them came down with pale faces. Some of them were forced down by the pressure of the Immortal Ascension stairs. The cultivators who were pushed down by the Immortal Ascension stairs fell heavily to the ground. Their muscles and veins were broken and their cultivators were crippled. Everyone who saw them sighed. Grey Wolf and the others were eating meat as they watched. They said, Look, look, look. This Immortal Ascension staircase is really not something that ordinary people can climb. Those of us who can ascend beyond the 100th step are really blessed by the heavens. Not bad. Fengjiu nodded. Generally speaking, cultivators above the 100th step might not be able to advance. It's your fortune that you were able to advance above the 100th step. Master, when are we leaving? How do we leave then? Luo Yu asked curiously. Even if they went up, they would only be able to reach the 100th step. They would not be able to go any further. But at that time, how would their master lead them up the Immortal Ascension stairs? Fengjiu chuckled. You don't need to know. Naturally, the secret of the space cannot be revealed to them. Even if he wanted to bring them up, they would have to enter the space while unconscious. On this day, they ate and drank to their heart's content and rested until the next morning. Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo led them out of this place and into the forest. Seeing them leave, the cultivators thought that they should have left. But they were curious. Why didn't the black-robed man go up? And that woman in red? Seeing how she was able to climb up the immortal ascension stairs, it should not be a problem for her to go up. Why was she only protecting those people? Chapter 2881. Some people thought that they hadn't woken up and were seeing things. Thus, they rubbed their eyes and sat up to take a look. It really was those two people. The man in the black robe with a cold face like an iceberg, and the beautiful woman in the red dress. The only difference was that these two people were still the same as before. However, the woman in red today was dressed as a man. She was still wearing red robes, but she exuded a different aura. If this woman was said to be enchanting and beautiful when she was wearing a red dress, then when she was dressed as a man, she was wanton and evil. That evil charm and unparalleled temperament gave people a feeling that it was difficult to distinguish between a man and a woman. If they had not seen her in a woman's dress before, they would have really thought that the person in front of them was a man at this moment. Furthermore, the people who had been with them and their contracted beasts had all disappeared. Even the child in their arms had disappeared. They thought that perhaps after sending those people away, the two of them wanted to try the immortal ascension staircase again. In front of the immortal ascension staircase, Xianyuanmo's held Fengzhou's hand. He looked at her and asked softly in a magnetic voice, "Are you ready?" Fengzhou replied and smiled. She had already prepared herself for a new and unfamiliar environment. Even though it was unfamiliar, with him by her side, she had nothing to fear. They held hands and walked up the immortal ascension staircase. Their steps were calm and unhurried. Every step they took was filled with confidence. It was as if they were not walking up the immortal ascension staircase, nor were they walking down the immortal ascension staircase to another world. It was as if they were taking a stroll in their own backyard. The two of them walked up the immortal ascension staircase together. They did not know how long they had been walking up the immortal ascension staircase. They only knew that they were getting closer and closer to the top. Fengzhou had been here before and it was easy for him. As for Xianyuanmo's, although it was his first time, he did not feel any pressure. However, unlike Fengzhou, he did not ascend the immortal ascension staircase to the next level. It was only when the two of them reached the top of the staircase that they stopped and looked at each other. This is the profound light gate. After passing through here, it will be another world. Fengzhou looked at Xianyuanmo's and said, "The last time I came here, I heard a few old monsters talking over there. It should be an expert from that side." Xianyuanmo said, "I wonder where we will appear after we pass through this place." She was a little curious. What kind of place would appear after this step? When Immerse walked here, where did he appear? He had gone there alone, so where could he be now? "No matter where we are, I will be by your side." He held her hand tightly and said, "Don't worry, let's go." "En." She replied and held his hand tightly as they walked forward. The two of them took the last step and walked into the profound light gate. They felt a force sucking them in. Light flashed in front of them, and they suddenly felt dizzy. Chapter 2882. When he saw this, his deep black eyes couldn't help but flash. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He whispered to Fengzhou, who was in his arms, "Zhou, we seem to have arrived at someone else's sect." "Ah." Fengzhou poked her head out of his arms and looked around. When she saw this, she was stunned. "It's so lively. Don't tell me we've bumped into their annual competition." Below them, a sea of people had gathered. It seemed like there was more than one sect, because everyone was wearing the same color robes. On the high platform in the middle, the two people fighting on the high platform were also stunned by the sudden appearance of the crowd and stopped fighting. At this time, the people below were a little dumbfounded. Several of them were participating in the annual competition. Suddenly, a dazzling light flashed in the sky. A vortex appeared, and a black figure suddenly appeared in their line of sight. However, when they focused their eyes, they saw a red figure poke her head out from the black figure's arms. When they looked closely, they saw that it was a man in a black robe who was holding a red-robed young man. In broad daylight, two men hugging each other appeared in front of everyone's eyes. This scene almost stunned everyone below. They had only seen a man hugging a woman, but they had never seen a man hugging a man. Where did these two come from? They couldn't have come down from the immortal ascension stairs, right? If they came down from the immortal ascension stairs, why would they be hugging each other? And they're both men. Could it be that people from the other side like this? Hey, look, that man in the black robe looks very, how should I describe it? A man on the side continued, the man in the black robe has a sharp aura. He exudes a powerful pressure and a noble aura. His face is handsome but it doesn't lose its coldness. Without mentioning anything else, just his appearance alone is enough to surpass Dongfang Qinjue, the leader of the 10 heavens favorites of the 4 major celestial sects. I didn't think that a place like that could give birth to someone who is comparable to a god. At that moment, the eyes of the venerables from the various sects flickered when they saw the two people who suddenly appeared. In particular, the eyes of a few of them lit up when they saw the beautiful face that peeked out from the black-robed man's arms. It's her. The little girl that they had taken a fancy to this time. It was also at this moment that Xianyuanmo's landed steadily on the stage with Fengzhou in tow. After he steadied himself, he let go of Fengzhou's waist and released her from his embrace. What's wrong? Are you okay? He ignored the people around him and lowered his head to ask Fengzhou who was in his arms. I'm fine. Fengzhou blinked as she looked at the people around her. At the same time, she walked out of Xianyuanmo's arms.